So, a quick introduction. My name is Shiva Raja. I'm the Technical Solutions Architect at HYCU. I've been with the company for 3 years now. But my background is totally based on data protection and data management solutions. And again, if you folks have any questions, please feel free to put them on chat, and I'll do my best to answer those questions. So, for a quick introduction, we are a multi-cloud data protection solution. We're based out of Boston, and we have offices globally, and we have a strength of close to 300 to 350 employees. And one of the cool things about our company is our engineering team has an extremely well-versed experience in building data protection solutions for blue chip companies. And some of these backup and recovery solutions have been on the top list of Gartner's Magic Quadrant. And that has actually enabled us to build one of the most simplified yet enterprise ready data protection solutions. And in that process, we actually have built a successful, not just a data protection solution for your on-prem environments, but also have the ability to extend that to a public cloud environment, truly promoting a more of a hybrid cloud environment for our customers. And from a global presence standpoint, with regards to our customers, we are spread across 75 countries with more than 2,500 customers. And we actually have, let me just move this cursor. Okay, cool. All right. All right, so we actually have customers in several verticals, right? I mean, be it with regards to oil and gas or airline, legal, financial, SLED, entertainment sector, retail. We basically have gained traction with several verticals, and we basically help them to truly not just modernize, but have a foolproof data protection solution from malware or even ransomware attacks. So with that being said, in today's session, I'm just going to cover three basic use cases, right? The first one is, how do you do affordable backups to the cloud, right? I mean, even if you have an on-prem infrastructure, and even if you're doing backups to tapes, which we can support, we can do backups to your on-prem disk-based devices, be it NAS or SAN, but how can you extend that infrastructure to support backups to the cloud? That's number one, right? And in the process of doing that, do we have the ability to preserve those backups in such a way that we won't have any ransomware attacks, or we are resilient from those attacks? Number two is, how do you migrate or fail over your backups to the cloud, right? For instance, let's say if your on-prem infrastructure is impacted due to a disaster or due to some other reasons, what is the strategy? What is your DR strategy? Or on the other hand, if you're an organization where you're trying to adopt to a Google Cloud or Azure or even AWS, how do you qualify your workloads to be cloud ready? How do you migrate those workloads to the cloud? That would be the second use case. And the third use case is, how do we truly promote a hybrid cloud environment? For instance, if you wanted to move your workloads from the cloud back to your on-prem environment and have a mobile, achieve a true hybrid cloud mobility of your business critical workloads, is that even possible? That is something that we'll be looking into in our current session, right? So these are the three major use cases. Now, let me just start with a very high-level graphical overview, right? So when it comes to your on-prem environment, we have a pretty diverse support. Like, we can support VMware, VMware running on Nutanix or pure Nutanix environment. We can also support your physical servers, Windows, Linux. You name it, we have it. And we also have the ability to support not just VM or VM based or physical server backups. We can also support application consistent backups like Microsoft SQL, Exchange, SAP HANA, Oracle. And the entire deployment process is very simple. Like, you just simply deploy a virtual appliance that has the ability to discover all of your data centers workloads and seamlessly do backups to your on-prem targets. But in addition to that, the cool thing here is we also have the ability to do agentless, seamless backups to your favorite cloud vendors. We can support backups to Google Cloud. We can support backups to Azure Blob. And in addition to that, what happens from here is we basically have the ability to fail over those backups to your respective cloud vendor, right? And from there, you basically have the ability to fail those backups back onto your on-prem infrastructure. And that is the flexibility that I'd like to showcase in our product, in our current demo. So let me just do a quick switch. And let me just switch to my my environment. Ron, just wanted to do a quick video check. Are you able to see my web browser here?
Yeah, where it says virtual machines, applications, targets, policies.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So just to give you a high-level overview, this is our quick view of what HYCU's on-prem solution looks like. We've basically discovered our entire data center here. If you go to the sources, you can actually see that we have discovered our VMware and our Nutanix environments, and we also have discovered some of our physical machines, be it Windows or Linux. And the moment we have all of these workloads discovered, we can actually view them under the virtual machines section. And from here, we also have the ability to automatically discover the underlying applications. Could be your Microsoft SQL or Exchange. All you have to do is just specify your login credentials, and we can discover all of these applications instantaneously. You don't have to deploy any agents or plugins, right? Now, the best part here is the ability to do backups, not just to your on-prem targets, but also doing backups to your cloud-based targets. Now, when we go to backup targets here, as you can see, we have a very diverse set of on-prem and cloud-based backup targets. We have Azure, and we also have Google Cloud. And you can actually see that we have this ability of backing up not just your VMs, but also your applications. So you would basically do that by specifying policies on how your VMs or applications are supposed to be backed up to the cloud. Now, in this particular case, I actually have a policy by the name Bronze GCP that actually does, two sets of backups. If I take a look into this policy, I can see that my primary backup basically gets backed up to my local NAS device. And from there, it basically gets copied to my Google Cloud storage. And this is where the whole ransomware protection can also kick in, because when you do backups to worm-enabled object storage, that is basically the place where your backups get preserved. And even if your primary environment or your backup targets on your on-prem environment is compromised, your backups are still safe and resilient on your cloud backup targets, right? So that is number one, having this ability to do seamless and easy backups to your cloud environment with zero agents or zero plugins. The entire deployment process, the time to deployment or time to production is basically less than 45 minutes to an hour, right? Now, from here, how do you go about, extending your backup use case, right? If I wanted to just go ahead and migrate my workloads to the cloud, or if I wanted to leverage my cloud target as a cloud platform as a DR target, can HYCU help me out in that situation? The answer is absolutely yes. We can fail over, or we can migrate your workloads to your Google Cloud or to your Azure, and coming soon, like in a couple of months, we'll be able to support the Azure environment as well. Sorry, the AWS environment as well. Now, let's just take an example of what are the VMs that have been backed up to Google Cloud. So if I can just go ahead and quickly apply a filter for my Bronze GCP policy that I was talking about, I can see that there are two virtual machines. And when I look at this virtual machine, it rings a bell to me, because this virtual machine is actually a Microsoft SQL VM. So instead of just migrating this virtual machine, why don't I just migrate the entire application, my Microsoft SQL database, which would be this particular instance, right? So what I can do here is I can choose the appropriate Microsoft SQL database. And when I choose the option spin up to cloud, it basically showcases two options. I can spin this up on Google, or I can spin this up on Azure. So let me just select Google for now. I mean, given the fact that I don't have a lot of time to showcase both the clouds. Now, when I choose Google Cloud, I can choose the appropriate service account. And from here, I choose the underlying project underneath my Google service account. And from here, I will be provided an option to choose the appropriate target region. And I'm just going to choose the Europe West, because that is where our data center is based out of. And when I choose these specific regions and target zones, Here's the best part. You not only have the ability to seamlessly migrate your applications to your preferred cloud vendor, but you also have the ability to customize your compute and memory requirements. I mean, let's say that if you're moving your workload, or if you're trying to qualify if your Microsoft SQL workload is cloud ready, you can actually, increase the CPU cores or memory for safety purposes. And based on that, we will be able to, give you the appropriate VM offering or the VM size offered by the Google Cloud vendor. And in addition to that, you also have the ability to specify customized networking options, right? If you wanted to have the network turned down, or if you wanted to have specific network options pertaining to that given region, you could do that here as well. So that is the best part. And all of this operation, right? Again, it doesn't need any additional deployment. You can simply deploy your on-prem virtual appliance for HYCU, discover your Google service account, discover your on-prem clusters, and you can easily move those VMs with no agents, no plugins, no data movers, nothing. And that's the beauty about this solution. And let's say that once you've moved once you've moved your workloads onto your Google Cloud environment, let's say you wanted to fail them back. I mean, you wanted to move them back onto your on-prem environment, or you failed over to your Google Cloud environment when there was a disaster on your on-prem infrastructure. And once your on-prem infrastructure is resolved, like once you have brought back your environment, let's say if you wanted to move back your resources from the cloud to your on-prem infrastructure, you could do that in an extremely easy fashion. All you have to do is basically click on the option, spin up VM from the cloud to your on-prem infrastructure, and you can choose the appropriate cloud infrastructure. And from there, you specify your Google Cloud service account, you specify the appropriate project, and underneath, you will be provided with the available virtual machines that have been failed over from your on-prem to your cloud infrastructure, right? And from there, you can choose the appropriate checkpoint, and you can simply do a migration from your cloud to your on-prem environment. And here you can specify the appropriate on-prem cluster. It could be a VMware or a Nutanix cluster. In addition to that, you also have the ability to specify the same compute modifications, like with regards to CPU, with regards to memory, and you also have additional ability of specifying the appropriate network interfaces on your on-prem cluster, and simply say spin up. So you're basically moving that VM from your Google Cloud to your on-prem environment. So the true takeaway from today's demo is we not only protect your VMs from, or your workloads from ransomware attacks by performing backups to worm-enabled backup targets, or providing you an air-gapped backup solution where your cloud backup targets are totally isolated from your production environment. We also have this ability to do migration or DR. You can qualify your applications as cloud ready. If your organization has a mandate of moving all of your workloads to the cloud, or if you don't want to spend too much money in investing in a DR infrastructure, and if you'd like to leverage your existing public cloud vendors like Google or AWS or Azure as a DR target, we can actually fail over those workloads to your public cloud vendor and bring them back when required. Like, there are so many use cases that we can address using this one single simplified but enterprise ready solution. So that would be my short demo. And let me just switch back to my presentation. All right, so to summarize, I'd just like to provide you with the following takeaways. The first thing is, please, there's so many topics and so many things that we can talk about with regards to what HYCU can do with regard, in terms of your data protection requirements, or protecting your workloads from ransomware, or having a high ransomware recovery capability. So please go to tryhycu.com, and you can actually evaluate our solution at no charge. For your on-prem or for your cloud environments. In addition to that, if you have any further questions, you can reach out to us at info@hycu.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you out and answer any questions you have. And if you wanted to find out more information, please visit us at www.hycu.com. So that
Great.
would be much about, yeah, that's pretty much about it from my side. Ron, any questions?
Well, I'm gonna ask Joseph, what's the biggest things that keep you up at night when you worry about your clients? And I know Shiva's up at night because I email him late at night. And so what are the folks at HYCU worrying about so its clients can sleep soundly, but some of the people at HYCU are up late at night trying to grapple with things?
It's all about backup security, right? I mean, in this day and age, as you pointed out from the previous session, ransomware attacks are turning out to be very frequent, and we've gotten to a stage where nobody is an exception, right? Um, Now, one of the biggest things that I personally ensure is to have your backups. I mean, number one, have frequent backups of your infrastructure, and number two, ensure that these backups are secured, right? Just because you have frequent backups that meet your SLA doesn't mean that your backups are secure, right? Because if a ransomware has the ability to encrypt your primary infrastructure, the ransomware attack also has the ability to impact your backup targets. For instance, we had this one customer who got impacted by a ransomware attack, not just on his primary, but also on his backup targets, which were unprotected SMB shares. So that is one of the biggest concerns that we always have, and we recommend customers to not just have frequent backup schedule, but also have the ability to protect their backups. And fortunately, this customer example that I gave, we were able to help that customer out by our secure integration with Nutanix platform, where we could basically make use of HYCU's API-based invoked Nutanix snapshots, where we basically restored their entire environment, and the customer didn't even have to pay a penny to any of those cyber perps. But to your point, Ron, this is one of the biggest things that we are working on. Ensure that the customers are educated on how they can be ready, how they can have their ransomware recovery readiness at the highest when their organization gets hit by ransomware.
Now, I know a couple of things as we made introductions to various people, and this is another question. You can go in when people do the demos, regardless of who their maybe integrator is, and provide guidance on how do you go about making sure that their DR architecture is either physically isolated, literally taken offline when it's tested, and not even connected. It's literally like in a separate room where you keep it, because you need a multi-layer defense in depth. So you're protected at all elements. And if you do have this real-time replication, you can still separate it out. So you might have it's not only a technical architecture, it's a physical architecture in terms of when you literally sever the cord for some of your backups. So maybe you'll lose a day or two, but then you put on, I'm assuming you can help people put in security parameters. So before you change the old stuff that could be even from a day or two ago, you're making sure that it's properly checked.
Absolutely. We not only, we also have the ability to monitor the change rate of your source VMs. In addition to what you just said, Ron, is if your backups are having unusual change rates because of a ransomware attack, we can also automate the pause of backup expiration. We can ensure that no backups get deleted to ensure that you don't lose those precious, stable backups or backup of uncorrupted data. So we basically, it's not just about isolating your backups, it's also about identifying when there's a ransomware attack and pausing backup expiration to ensure that you don't lose any data.
And I will tell for all the people out there, one of the things that individuals hate is actually doing backup test and spend a weekend where, let's say if there's a hurricane or a ransomware attack, people hate it. And the good thing, and I encourage people to follow up with HYCU and some of our other subjects, is people hate doing backups. And now you can work with HYCU and others to architect your backup plans so you're focusing more on the architecture, not actually, you still need to do them, but maybe less frequently. And the final thing is, and you can comment on this, I want to bring up Jamie, our featured speaker from Google, to talk about the Google Anthos and hybrid multi-cloud platform. Maybe you can briefly mention, as I switch presenters here, on how HYCU complements, this is Narashima's question, how HYCU works with a number of the cloud providers to make sure it's seamless if you've got this hybrid infrastructure with data stored in multiple locations. I'll just have you briefly answer that, Shiva, before we turn it over to Jamie.
Absolutely. So the answer to that question is HYCU can also support backup of resources like diverse workloads on the cloud as well. We do have backup as a service hosted on Google Cloud, on Azure, and soon we will be available on AWS as well. So for instance, when you take Google Cloud, for instance, we can support the backup of your Google Cloud VMs, your Kubernetes, your GKE containers, your Google Cloud storage, unstructured data, and all of this, right? Your on-prem, your Google Cloud, your Azure, and your AWS, or even your O365 can be basically presented from the backup management of all these resources can be presented from a single pane of glass. We call that as HYCU's Manager of Managers, where you could basically have the ability to monitor the backup status of all of your workloads in a true hybrid cloud environment.
Okay, so that's the answer to your question. It is compatible. You can architect it. We're so glad to have that valuable session. Thank you again, Shiva.
Sure.
So now we're going to bring up Jamie Duncan, who's a rock star on the Angelbeat circuit. You know, I came across Jamie a year and a half ago when we were asked to recommend. Jamie, don't look so puzzled. You know you're a rock star. I know you're a little low key.
Look, I would love to. The HYCU user experience looks amazing. I haven't had a chance to explore that tech yet, but I've added it to my short list of things to investigate. It looks really cool, Shiva, man.
Thank you, Jamie. Please reach out